I remember he influenced me to start writing in newspapers. I was very daunted, but PT more or less held my hand and showed me how to do this. So yes, I'm indebted to him. PT remained on the softer side of economics, in the sense that he remained committed to equality and poverty, etc. Well, I moved off towards the right side. I was in Chicago, and PT, when he was in Denver, came to see me twice, stayed with me. We had long arguments at night, enjoyed it enormously. We still used to have these arguments because PT was always committed to the more human side of economics, and I must confess, I was on the other side. But the argument was very enjoyable.
5-year plans के लिए बाकायदा लिखवाए, पेपर्स लिखवाए. ये दूसरी बात है कि फिर वहां पर ऊपर से आपको पता है क्या क्या हो जाता है. और एक दो, मैं नाम किसी का नहीं लेना चाहती. This is supposed to be a sober and celebration kind of moment. लेकिन यार, तुमने ताहिर अब्दुल्ला जैसे लोगों को बुला लिया. क्या कर रहे हो यार? मैं तो सोच भी नहीं सकता कि तुम इस तरह की हरकत करोगे. ये क्या कर रहे हो तुम? Don't do it again. And PT would just smile and say, sir, this was my meeting. I will call them. I'm calling the meeting, and I will invite whoever needs to be invited or whoever I wish to invite.
Just thanking everyone for your positive memories. It's wonderful to know how many lives he's touched. I'm overwhelmed by the responses and by the memories so many individuals have had. I can't believe there's so many people even on this call right now whose lives he's probably touched. So thank you so much for organizing this, and we are taking in all of your warm wishes and taking in all of your warm memories.
The life of an economist. Dr. Pervez Tahir was one of our foremost economists, former chief economist of Pakistan, a well-known teacher, holder of the Mahbubul chair, and many other achievements, written 2 or 3 books, very important books on George Robinson, on the Pakistan economy, and lovely papers that he wrote on poverty, on inequality, on many things, and also held a newspaper column for many years, starting off at Pakistan Times when he was very young and all committed to Marxism. Later, he was had a regular column in the Dawn, in News, and many newspapers. The great thing about PT was that he was a great analyst. He could analyze the economic situation, to understand the numbers very well, because he'd served a long time in the Planning Commission, unions, and the economy. But more importantly, the article that he would write, full of wit, and his sardonic wit that used to come through at times would make you smile or laugh. But PT was always there, not with the analysis, not only with the analysis, but also with his sardonic wit, which was absolutely wonderful. PT will be remembered by all very well. PT, when I was young, we were, as I said, we were all Marxists together, we worked together. But most importantly, I remember PT was in the Pakistan Times. So I remember he influenced me to start writing in newspapers. I was very daunted, but PT more or less held my hand and showed me how to do this. So yes, I'm indebted to him. PT remained on the softer side of economics, in the sense that he remained committed to equality and poverty, etc. Well, I moved off towards the right side. I was in Chicago, and PT, when he was in Denver, came to see me twice, stayed with me. We had long arguments at night, enjoyed it enormously. We still used to have these arguments because PT was always committed to the more human side of economics, and I must confess, I was on the other side. But the argument was very enjoyable because he had read a lot. He had viewpoint that was very, very interesting and very, very practical, and he could wake me up to think about more things. So I really appreciate PT. I really miss him. He was always wonderful to talk to. He always had a new way of looking at economics. So what I would like to do now is that I don't want to hold forth. I'll butt in between and talk about it. But I really think that all of you want to talk about PT. So rather than me hugging the field, I would like to include all of you. So please, whoever wants to speak, just raise your hand. And as it's a somber occasion, we are not going to argue. We are not going to talk about politics or the current situation, whatever. We're going to talk about the life of PQ, and more importantly, the intellect of PQ, and more importantly, his contribution to the subject of economics. I thought it was a very important memorial to hold because economists are seldom celebrated. In fact, economists are not even given economist jobs. Most of those jobs go to bankers. And PT, who retired, not at all, he didn't retire. He resigned on a point of principle earlier than his retirement. And then instead of giving him a good appointment because we need economists, he hardly had. He would obviously go and teach at university, do some things, but the government did not recognize PT for what it does. But that's the story for all of us, not just him, story of all of us. But PT would always give you a very precise analysis of the economy, what's happening in the economy, and even go deeply, for example, in the wheat situation, for example, into the BSTP, for example, into the fiscal situation, and he always had a very interesting, pithy point of view, very precise point of view, and that was always engaging and wonderful to learn from. So that is why we are celebrating PT, one of our foremost economists, a leading economist, and I think we should celebrate him. So I would, so I think that's why we are holding this memorial, and I would like to invite you people to participate in here. In any way you can. I think Tariq Banouri has just joined us. PT was, as I said, he was the chief economist. I used to come from Washington when I was in the fund, mostly on leave, didn't have any reason to see him, but I would always stop in at his office and find out what's happening. He'd laugh and say things like, I take you on it, I take the NGO on it. And he'd give you some interesting analysis of that, not just simply that he said something, but also that he gave you, it's not that he cracked a joke, but he would also give you anecdotes and stories and make you understand what's happening in Pakistan. Stuff that you couldn't get from somebody who hasn't actually put his feet, not just feet, but his whole body into the Pakistan economy. Many of us talk about the economy from the outside, but PT had the advantage that he talked about the economy from the inside. He told you what's happening in the economy, and he told you with anecdotes, with ideas, with, all kinds of stories about how the government functions, how the government works, how the government undertakes projects, and how the government thinks. And that those insights I missed. They were very important insights that PT gave us. And I think we should all try and remember what he did. So if you have any story or anecdote about PT, please come and tell us. That's the whole point of this space, that we should talk about the man, his contribution, and his thought in the Pakistan economy. Suleiman Wasti. Wasti Saab used to be an economist in the Planning Commission, went to the World Bank. He, of course, worked with PT and knew him very well. Wasti, go ahead. Suleiman.
Assalamu alaikum, Nadeem. Assalamu alaikum, Nadeem. God bless you. We go back to LSE 71 to 74. I joined PT in the Planning Commission in 1975. We started our careers together. And I was, as Nadia would testify, I wished him happy birthday 2 days before. I called him and he was cutting his cake. And I have, it's the loss of a brother. Actually, I mean, there are people who come in your lives who will never, it's a tragedy, and I'm totally devastated and heartbroken. On PT's personal life, I mean, I have never seen such a humble person who never talked ill about anyone, despite his tremendous credentials. I mean, he went on to Denver, then he got his PhD at Sedgwick College in Cambridge. And we stayed in touch together. And every time I came twice in 2021 and 2022, he came specially from Lahore to Islamabad Club to sit down together. And we talked about old reminiscences and our times together with Muinuddin Bakai, with Javed Asfar, with all the stalwarts of the Planning Commission, and then Mahbubul Haq and others. And he had, what I can tell something about PT is that it was humility with integrity. And this is something which is a very rare commodity in a country like Pakistan, where you have people who write books about the philosophy of Mahbubul Haq and others. He never caved in and this is a personal loss to me. And Nadeem, you can verify that he, when he was working for you in PIDE, and we had long conversations, and no job was beneath him and no job was above him. This is a rare commodity in a country like Pakistan. And I just want to give a chance to others. And I am just devastated, heartbroken. God bless you, Nadeem. And it is, I especially I'm joining from Washington, D.C., and I have my own firm. We advise foreign governments and others. And hopefully we will stay in touch and keep his memory alive. I will be writing an obituary in Washington, D.C. for him. And all the best, Nadeem, and God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Salman. Thank you. Thank you. Very kind of you. And, you're absolutely right. I agree with you. PT had integrity and humility. And as I said, most important of all, a deep analytical streak and a wonderful wit to match. So it was absolutely wonderful. His cynical laugh was also that I remember very well. So he had lots of qualities that we should all remember. And there's a wonderful, wonderful eulogy that you gave, Salman. It was really, really very, very good of you to remember the wonderful traits that PT had, and we should all take them to heart. And I hope that we leave such memories behind, because there are going to be times when we will all go, and we should all try and. In fact, in the newspapers recently, there were quite a few obituaries written for PT. For example, Rashid Hamza wrote a very nice obituary, and really moving and really, really well thought out. There's someone else who wrote a wonderful obituary too. So there have been 2 or 3 obituaries that I've seen, at least. I'm sure many of you have seen more, but I have seen 2 or 3 obituaries that were very well done, and that remembered PT for his qualities and remembered him for the wonderful person that he was. So please, anybody else, and I'll call his family probably after everybody has spoken. His family is here, Nadia is here, his daughter Beamish is here. I don't know whether there are other family members too, but yes, they were there. I think Rashid Damjad is here. Rashid, do you want to say something?
Thank you. This is Rashid Bajwa, actually.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Rashid. Rashid Bajwa, fine. Rashid Saab from NRSP, the head of NRSP, please go ahead.
Yes. So I knew PT very early when we were setting up the NRSP, and I came from the government on deputation, and he was there in the Planning Commission. And you rightly said, Nadeem, that he has this human side of he's a human economist, as I see. He always talked about human beings and poverty alleviation. And he has been associated with the rural support programs ever since, since they were set up. He was there as an advisor, and till lately, he was on the board of NRSP. And before that, he was advising us regularly. And one of the things which I still remember is that in one of the 5 years plan which was being made, he insisted that there should be a chapter on poverty, and there was none. So then he went back, and he was able to convince the powers to have an addendum. So there is one 5-year plan where there's an addendum on poverty alleviation. He was also involved very passionately in the social action program. I think he was the one who was pushing it from the Planning Commission side. And so his idea was that social action program and social mobilization, which we do at all the rural support programs, this is something which has to go together. And that's how he thought about it. And we tried to do that. But of course, things changed. It took a tangent. But nevertheless, he has always been with us. And you rightly say that he has this cynical way of looking at things, particularly economy, I think. He always thought about things with a different angle. He used to travel a lot while he was on the board of NRSP, and he was one of the very few directors who went to all the regions, Turbat and Sindh and Balochistan and everywhere else, KP and AJK. And he would come back and we would have a chat and he would report what are the kind of things which he liked and what are the kind of things which he would improve upon. So he was kind of, as they say, he was an eyes and ears of my chairman, Shoaib Sultan Khan. So this is how he would structure. And he would always make time to go to the field and talk to the people. I don't know, lately he was very fond of sitting with the people. He would dress up. When he was in Sindh, he looked like a Vadera with a turban, very nice, an ajrak on his head. When he was in Punjab, he was a different man. So he would, assume the dress codes of different areas as well. So I have found him very helpful, as well as critical. I mean, economists are critical. I mean, you can't convince an economist. But nevertheless, there was a lot of contribution from his side to my organization, and I fully respect. And I hope that wherever he is, he's in good hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashid Saab. Very, PIDE was very committed in their side. We started off as socialists, and I moved on. But PIDE, although he moved on too, in a sense, he was studying neoclassical economics, but his love for John Robinson and his love for eradicating poverty were always there. So the human side never left. Many would accuse me of losing it, but PIDE never lost that human side. He would always be thinking of inequality, the way to decrease maldistribution, and the way to reshape things so that the poor had a chance. And he would always look at the economy from the point of view of the poor man. So that's absolutely right. And I'm very happy to hear about his contribution to NRSP. I knew some of it, but you outlined it very well. He made far more of a contribution than I thought. So that's absolutely wonderful to know. And I knew he was a man of the people. But the man of the people is, what should I say? A man of the people, many people who pretend to be man of the people. But PIDE was. He worked in the Pakistan Times. He knew all the journalists. He knew all the Lahori intellectuals personally. Not like me, sort of kind of anecdotally learning from others. He knew them personally. He interacted with them. He talked to them. He talked to them at a personal level because he had known them since his childhood. Safdar Suhail.
Sir, thank you very much for this. For first of all, holding this condolence reference, I really appreciate you holding it, that's one way to compliment PIDE Saab and remember him, and I'm sure for his family also. This is something which, as a community, we can convey that we loved him, we respected him, and we cherish the memories of our association with him, which also, I would say, that there is a sense of grief also at the personal level. Pervez Tahir Sahab, may Allah bless him, was always very kind to me in person. And as Dr. Nadeem, you have yourself hinted at the kind of positions and the ideas that he stood for. Our Social Protection Resource Center was very fortunate to have his guidance. He was always very forthcoming, and he knew a lot of our directors and sympathizes with the Social Protection Resource Center and the causes that we stand for. And in that sense, it's big loss for us. I personally deeply sympathize with the family also, with his son, with Dr. Nadia. At the professional level, I tend to think that there were very few people in this category where he occupied a large space, and that's a worry also that such a voice has gone away. So that would surely, and it's not. I'm not saying in a proverbial sense that there is a vacuum which may not be filled soon or well enough. But this is a general problem that we have, that we had this whole generation of people in which there were many nice people standing for their views. So he would be dearly missed at the personal level, but the loss is real. Let's hope that the people who love him, the people who liked his steadfastness, his sincerity with his ideas, they can carry on with his legacy. That's the best way to go about it. I had actually spoken to Dr. Nadia that we would also like to hold a condolence reference for him, but this is good. This is a much larger, bigger platform that Dr. Nadeemul Haq has organized it, but I would suggest that maybe we can have a memorial lecture, or we can identify his intellectual legacy and can have one or two sessions on his legacy, on his continued relevance these days and for the days to come, so that our younger academics, intellectuals know him more on that level also. So personally, me and our colleagues at Social Protection Resource Center would be very happy to join hands with PIDE or other academic or policy institutions to do something still in the same context, maybe taking his books and holding a book review. So let's continue after this condolence reference also with his legacy in a different way, continuing to engage with his ideas and with his contribution, and memorialize some of his contributions in different forms. Maybe we can initiate review of his books, and we can bring in a dedicated issue of discourse that PIDE brings out. So there are many ideas. I would request Dr. Nadeemul Haq to maybe collect different ideas from today's session also, so that we continue with our association with him in a different way. And we hope that we would have many more individuals like him in the coming days. Thank you very much, Dr. Nadeem.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you, Sadr Saab. Very well put. Please, absolutely feel free to do this. We must. And intellectuals' deaths should be celebrated as well as the work examined, and by a lot of people. So obviously, there is a lot of room to do different things, and we'll be happy to collaborate with anybody. At PIDE, we love to collaborate, so we'll be happy. So let me take Tahir Abdullah, the famous feminist. Tahir Abdullah.
सबको सलाम और बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका डॉक्टर नदीमुल हक और पाइड पूरी की पूरी टीम का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। ये बहुत ज़रूरी था और बहुत अहम ये आपने आज की मीटिंग बुलाई है। थैंक यू सो मच इंडीड। बहुत सारी बातें तो हो गई थी पिछले हफ्ते पीटी के घर पर, और नादिया यहाँ मौजूद हैं, बिनिश यहाँ मौजूद हैं, और फैमिली मेंबर्स भी होंगे, मैं देख रही हूँ। कुछ एक दो बातें कहना चाहती हूँ, और वो ये कि सेलिब्रेशन, बिल्कुल नदीम साहब आपने बिल्कुल सही फरमाया, सेलिब्रेशन ऑफ पीटी, लेकिन प्लीज अलाउ मी टू से इट इज अ लॉस फॉर द एंटायर कंट्री एंड इट इज एन इंटरनेशनल लॉस ऑल्सो, क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोगों ने बहुत सारे जिक्र किए उनकी एकेडमिक लाइफ के, उनके स्टूडेंट लाइफ के, उनकी जो पीएचडी का जो काम था, सारा कुछ, उसके बाद पोस्ट डॉक्टोरल जो काम करते रहे हैं और जो लिखते पढ़ते रहे हैं पीटी, सबने जो जिक्र किया, तो मैं समझती हूँ कि सेलिब्रेशन के साथ साथ हमें अपने लॉस का जिक्र करना बहुत जरूरी है. It is a loss for the family, it is a loss for the country, and it is a loss for the world. तो ये कहना बहुत जरूरी है. मैं छोटा सा एक दो चीजें अगर इजाजत हो तो बात कर लूं, और वो ये कि जब पीटी आए प्लानिंग कमीशन के अंदर तो उन्होंने उसको खोल दिया था. एक क्लोज्ड सा एक जगह थी, डार्क कॉरिडोर्स, और सच्ची बात है, मुझे बोलने दीजिए, नो सनशाइन, और वो एक क्लिकिश किस्म का एलीट था. अगर आप इकोनॉमिस्ट नहीं हैं तो आप कुछ भी नहीं हैं. एंड दिस इज नॉट द चिप ऑन माय शोल्डर नदीम, दिस इज द फैक्ट कि प्लानिंग कमीशन बिल्कुल ऐसा था. या तो आप इन ग्रुप में हैं, यू नो, द डीएनजी ग्रुप, द सिविल सर्विस ऑफिसर्स, और या फिर आप इकोनॉमिस्ट हैं तो फिर आप कुछ हैं, बाकी अगर आप नहीं हैं तो आप कुछ नहीं हैं. पीटी वाज अ ब्रेथ ऑफ फ्रेश एयर फॉर द प्लानिंग कमीशन एंड फॉर द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ पाकिस्तान. और उसके लिए मैं समझती हूँ कि मैं अपनी पूरी जिंदगी भर उनका शुक्रिया अदा करती रहूंगी और उनको ट्रिब्यूट पे करती रहूंगी. इस वजह से उन्होंने हम जैसों को बुलाया. आई मीन, यू नो, कहाँ मैं और कहाँ प्लानिंग कमीशन और कहाँ चीफ इकोनॉमिस्ट बुलाते थे कॉन्फ्रेंसेस में, मीटिंग्स में, इवन छोटी छोटी क्लोज डोर मीटिंग्स में बुला लेते थे. हर किस्म की कमेटी में उन्होंने मेरे जैसे लोगों को डाला. मैं सोच भी नहीं सकती कि मेरे जैसे लोग इस तरह की कमेटी में एक ऑनर्ड मेंबर के तौर पर वेलकम किए जाएं. फिर उन्होंने हमसे लिखवाया. यू नो, इंसान का एक सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस का लेवल होता है जो कि नहीं होता, और पीटी ने वो सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस हमें, मोरल बूस्टिंग की, एनकरेजमेंट दी, सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस दिया, ऑल इन विथ हिज टंग इन चीक ब्रिटिश सेंस ऑफ ह्यूमर के साथ साथ, यू नो, वेरी अंडरस्टेटेड सेंस ऑफ ह्यूमर के साथ साथ. और फिर हमें लिखवाया 5 ईयर प्लान्स के लिए, बाकायदा लिखवाया, पेपर्स लिखवाए. ये दूसरी बात है कि फिर वहां पर ऊपर से आपको पता है क्या क्या हो जाता है. और एक दो, मैं नाम किसी का नहीं लेना चाहती, दिस इज सपोज टू बी अ सोबर एंड सेलिब्रेशन काइंड ऑफ मोमेंट, लेकिन यार, तुमने ताहिर अब्दुल्ला जैसे लोगों को बुला लिया. क्या कर रहे हो यार? मैं तो सोच भी नहीं सकता कि तुम इस तरह की हरकत करोगे. ये क्या कर रहे हो तुम? डोंट डू इट अगेन. And PT would just smile and say, "Sir, this was my meeting. I will call them. I'm calling the meeting, and I will invite whoever needs to be invited or whoever I wish to invite." आखिरी बात जो मैं करना चाहूंगी वो ये है कि जब वो एक यूरिका मोमेंट आता है, या एक एब्सोल्युटली नॉट वाला जब मोमेंट किसी की जिंदगी में आता है, और हर एक की जिंदगी में आता है, कुछ लोग सुरखरू होके निकलते हैं इस मोमेंट के साथ, कुछ लोग, आई एम सॉरी, अपना अकाउंट सही नहीं दे सकते. पीटी विल स्टैंड इन द हिस्ट्री ऑफ पाकिस्तान एज वन हु सेड एब्सोल्युटली नॉट. ये पॉवर्टी का फिगर 2005 में शौकत अजीज लेड Ministry of Finance, and he was also happened to be the Prime Minister at that time, imported from Citibank, New York. तो उस वक्त पीटी ने जिस तरह खड़े होके नहीं का लफ्ज बोला, immortal word no. उसके बाद, of course, someone else said no in March of 2007, but we are not here to discuss that here today. PT ने at great professional cost, at great personal cost, वो एक सिलेबल का इमॉर्टल लफ्ज नो जब बोल दिया था, जब पाकिस्तान इकोनॉमिक सर्वे पे ही वाज आस्क्ड टू साइन ऑफ on the reduction, on the miraculous reduction of the poverty head count and the poverty percentage. उस वक्त जो स्टैंड लिया पीटी ने, वो रहती दुनिया तक कायम रहेगा, सुनहरी अल्फाज में पाकिस्तान की तारीख में लिखा जाएगा. And I am privileged and proud to have been one of those जो कि publicly acknowledge करते रहे हैं, publicly recognize करते रहे हैं पीटी को. मैंने तो in writing 4 articles में recognize किया है पीटी को, and he was shocked that in the last one his name was actually not deleted and censored out by the editors of that, you know, who edited my article and published it. तो इसलिए मैं बहुत इस बात का एक one feels humbled to have been called a friend by PT. आज ये बात मुझे याद रहेगी. नादिया, बिनिश, फैमिली मेंबर्स, आपको मेरी तरफ से दिली ताजियत, and stay strong. like you are and you have been. Thank you so much, PIDE. Thank you, Nadeem Haq. Thank you so much. Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you, Tahira. That was wonderful, very well said. But these sentiments are, I think, shared by all of us. We've all been influenced by PT, by his personality, by his life. We've all been influenced by his thoughts. And we've also seen what an honorable man he was, and a good friend he was, and so many qualities that you mentioned. Fully agree with you. And yes, of course, while we celebrate him in a somber fashion, because we celebrate him with a sense of loss. We don't celebrate him because there is no loss. There is a deep loss, but at the same time, we have to celebrate the man for being there for us. And that's the celebration that we are doing along with the loss. We are going to celebrate the man for what he was and he shared with us in his life. Now, I'd like to call his daughter who wants to speak. Beenish, please go ahead. Now, she is PT's daughter. She's also an economist in her own right. She's in, mashallah, the UNDP. So, Beenish, please come and share your thoughts. Then we've got other people waiting.
Thank you so much. I'm just responding on behalf of my family. This is also my husband, Shahryar Fazli, who's joining. Many of you probably know him also. I'm really just thanking everyone for your positive memories. It's wonderful to know how many lives he's touched. I'm overwhelmed by the responses and by the memories so many individuals have had. I can't believe there's so many people even on this call right now whose lives he's probably touched. So thank you so much for organizing this. And we are taking in all of your warm wishes and taking in all of your warm memories. Shahryar, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No. Not at the moment, except to say thank you. And I'm moved by what's already been said and looking forward to hearing what other people on this call have to say about my father-in-law who left us too soon.
Thank you, folks. Let me take Wasim Salim. Wasim Salim, sir.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Wasim Salim. I'm a technical officer at WHO, Pakistan, working on tobacco taxation. And Dr. Pervez Tahir was a mentor to me. And I remember that first time I assisted him on a work on human security. And human security, we were looking at the night after the National Finance Commission Award, and he was interested to see the expenditure, as a lot of people were talked about Dr. Pervez Tahir's work, pro-poor work on sustained economic development. So with the same vision, he started some work and want to analyze the expenditure by the government allocations on humans versus government allocation on security. And that was the first time. At that time, I was a student of MPhil at Deakin House National University. So this was an exposure for me to looking and understanding that how the economic policy research is conducted and how to see and analyze the issues relevant in the economic policy. So that was completely a mind-opening way or work for me, actually. And after that, I have assisted him in work for Human Rights Commission for Pakistan and for PIDE also. And always at NFC, I remember that he got some work for UNDP at that time. And at the same time, he was so kind that I requested him to read my MPhil thesis, and which he did without any hesitation. and without delaying. So he was very kind to me. And I think that there are a lot of things which I have learned from him while working on economy and looking at economy with a different perspective. But the most important thing which I have learned from him, and he's a strong proponent for that, and which I think most of the economists missed. Today we talk about efficiency, economic policies.
Wasim sir, मेरा ख्याल आपकी आवाज चली गई. So could you rejoin and complete your thought, please? आपकी आवाज क्रैक कर रही है. नहीं, I think you please rejoin and complete your thought, because आपकी आवाज ठीक नहीं आ रही. Meanwhile, I'll turn to Tariq Banoori, former chairman HEC, founder of STPI, professor at University, Oklahoma University, I think. Go ahead, Tariq. Tariq Banoori.
University of Utah, not Oklahoma.
Utah, sorry.
So they're
getting old, Tariq, getting old.
As we are all are. It's I'm on the one hand, I'm just still in mourning and in grief for PT. But on the other hand, it's so uplifting to be in a group of people who all cherish his memories and his love. Well, there's a well-known candle lighting ritual. Some of you may have heard it, where they light five candles, and they always have this invocation. As we light these 5 candles in your honor, one for our grief, one for our memories, one for our love, one for and that also means our, yours, and our, one for our courage, and one for our hope. And as I think of us sitting today, we are lighting these 5 candles, bringing together our grief, our memories, our love, and also equally, if not more importantly, our courage and our hope. The kind of work that people like PT did was driven not only by a deep commitment to the poor and the weak and the vulnerable in society, but also with this incisive intellect, which can help light the way. It is that candle sitting and lighting the way for our people and for other generations. It's a candle that lights the way, it illuminates, and it brings the enormous power of the intellect to tell us how to go about doing the kind of things that are very important. It's you also remember Elton John's honor memorial for Princess Diana, where he called her a candle in the wind. And that too is a metaphor that quite applies to people like PT. The environment is not very conducive. The environment actually, seeks to push back on people who try to do the kind of good that he was trying to do with his life. And it is truly a candle in the wind. And yet, against all odds, it's a candle that survives, and it's a candle that lights our way. I can go on in some of that vein, but I do want to take this opportunity to say a little bit about the kind of work that was, very important in trying to push the frontiers of our knowledge forward. As Nadeem said, PT started off, I won't call him a socialist. If at all, he was, I would have said, a budding socialist, but not really one. He was more of what can be called a pragmatic economist or a pragmatic thinker with a kind of a commitment to the poor and the weak and the vulnerable. Maybe in these days, the only word we can use for this is socialism, but I never, in all my knowledge, I didn't understand him to be driven by this notion of social conflict being necessary for the advancement of society. He still believed in pragmatic solutions and solutions that people of goodwill and meaning can bring forward, and of people coming together to try to solve the problems together. So it's true that when in the 60s, the popular framework for thinking about some of these issues was provided by left-wing thinking, perhaps even socialist thinking. But I think as PT sort of went deeper into his own thinking, I think he became what I would call a pragmatic economist. And as in many such cases, he drew a lot from the work of Keynes and his followers. And of course, as you know, his most important, most significant conceptual and theoretical work was on the life and the contribution of Joan Robinson, one of the leading Keynesian scholars. But Keynes had actually brought about a massive revolution in our thinking by totally upending the prevailing conventional framework of economics, by showing that it's not only thinking from the ground up, from first principles, that you can actually, there are two ways of thinking about the problems. One is kind of an axiomatic cerebral way, and the other one is what later on was called macroeconomics, that you actually look at the entire picture. In some sense, as the AI people would tell you, that if the degrees of freedom are finite, it makes sense to think from an axiomatic bottom-up perspective. But as the problem becomes infinite, you actually need to bring other perspectives into it. And Keynes brought that other perspective. And as I said, one of his biggest exponents of Keynes's thinking, especially when it comes to development. Keynes really did not do much work on development, except for his early PhD thesis, which was on the monetary system in India. That too wasn't on development. But Joan Robinson did work on development using the Keynesian, how shall we put it, meta theory, the Keynesian philosophy, as opposed to a purely Keynesian economic framework. And my sense from working with PT is that this is a framework that he actually adopted, and that led him into trying to develop more pragmatic ways of looking at the issues so that you can actually focus in on problems. And a lot of things, for instance, Nadeem says that, he was bringing in a lot of practical examples. I think that was part of his appeal and part of his thinking, that you bring together the larger examples, and that you bring together the practical examples when you find practical solutions, and you don't get stuck in sort of axiomatic theory if it has the potential of being wrong. The image that comes to mind is of Escher, the artist, who comes up with these elaborate paintings in which every little piece works, but when the whole thing is put together, it doesn't work. And, when you actually look at Escher's painting, you realize that you don't need to go from these abstract theoretical axiomatic works, that you also need to take a look at the overall structure and see how the economy functions. So I think that was really a fundamental contribution that PT has done. This was reflected in his work at the Planning Commission. It was also reflected throughout in the articles that he wrote very regularly for the Express Tribune and for the News and for other newspapers. So I think he's left us a very large legacy of academic work, of his work as a columnist, of his work as a practical intellectual, a public intellectual, of his work as a policy wonk of sorts, and also as a theoretical economist in the Keynesian world of operations. So I think that there's a lot of that we can pull together and carry forward. When I was speaking at the event that Nadia had organized, the example that that had come to mind that I had given was that of Joe Hill, a famous labor organizer who was basically the subject of a conspiracy, and he was accused of a crime and then convicted. And when he was in jail waiting for the sentence to be carried out, one of the letters that he wrote to his friend, Bill, was that he said, look, don't waste your time in mourning. Don't waste your time in mourning. Organize. And Joe Hill's lesson is something that has become almost a meme of its own right. Don't mourn, organize. And I think as we all collect together, and Sohail Safdar mentioned this also, as we all come together, the thing that we need to do is, what do we do to carry on the legacy that Pervez Tahir in his many incarnations has left us? I think this is the challenge for all of us. And if Nadeem and Sohail and other people have spoken to me, Abid Sulevi, if all of us, we get together, I think we can carry this work forward quite effectively. And I'm very much, would be very much happy to be a part of it. Thank you very, very much for letting me speak. My condolences again to his family and friends and all the people who love him. And my wishes that we are able to carry the work forward. When we light those 5 candles, it is not only our grief and our memories and our love, but our courage and our hope that we celebrate. And it is time to celebrate the courage and the hope that PT represented. Thank you very much, Nadeem.
Thank you very much, Tariq. Tariq, you really raised a very valid point. The mix of feelings that an event like this arises in us, which are well illustrated by the 5 candles, is very important. Life goes on, even though, somebody falls, but life goes on. That's the hope. And that's the future that we are thinking about. Yes, of course, but then we also think about the man that we lost and what he meant to us. And you are very right. You gave a wonderful, short synopsis of how Keynes and Joan Robinson influenced PT, but influenced him in the sense that the inner PT was revealed through them by his influence on them. His book on Joan Robinson is very insightful, very good, but he had a very deep love of Joan Robinson and her theory, having studied with her. And he also was enamored of the fact that Joan Robinson herself was a very practical economist, and she had a wonderful critique of neoclassical economics, whether I agree with her or not, but it's a wonderful critique. And her work on imperfect competition still lives on, and PT really understood that very well and celebrated it. So that connection is very important. Let me bring in Bakar Ahmed. Bakar.
Thank you for hosting this. My deepest condolences to family and friends over here. I think I just wanted to bring in a couple of things over here that build upon what Dr. Tariq Banouri just said, and the fact that many of us over here are practitioners at some level, and the kind of learning that we draw from Dr. Tahir's work. And of course, that has to be taken forward as well. When I joined the service about 22 years back, Dr. Tahir was my first boss, actually. So coming from an academic setting into the applied world, of course, there were some very strong foundations that were given to me and my peers when we joined the service. But I think while, of course, we talk about many of his works, there are 3 that come to mind, which, of course, we who continue to practice development administration or economic policy in Pakistan, there are 3 pieces of work which shouldn't get lost. One is Dr. Tahir's writings on the economic thought of founding fathers. The fact that this was, of course, seminal work and collection and something which should continue going forward. Second was his writings on economic statistics, which I think Dr. Tahir Abdullah also talked about the fact that he was taking certain positions, but of course those positions were very much grounded on the evidence which was being produced at that time in the Planning Commission under his leadership, of course. But the third, less talked about work is the task which was given to Dr. Tahir on the right sizing of the federal government back in 2003. And that report was extremely important work. It was at some level, a political project which was given to him. And of course, being a civil servant, that was not something which was easy to lead. But today, when we talk about reforms, various forms of reforms in the government, I am sometimes reminded that we need to dig in and go back to the reports which he had produced, and that work shouldn't die. On the capacity side, the fact that here you have somebody who was able to train a generation of economists. May I also add that he trained a generation of journalists and development practitioners as well. So as I see his career, there are three very parallel stints that you see, and not every civil servant is able to demonstrate that while he's remaining in the government, he's part of the development community, the non-profits, the social enterprises, as well as the economic journalism realm. Something which, of course, you wouldn't see in today's modern day civil servants. In fact, for them, it'll be very hard to engage today with the development community, least to say with the journalists or with the mass media. I must also bring here his contribution to our institute, Sustainable Development Policy Institute. The fact that he went to lengths in ensuring the sustainability of our work. As a non-profit institution, it's not been easy, but he served on the board. He challenged us. He helped with fundraising. He opened up new avenues where we had to walk. For example, the most recent edition being our policy journal, which we had initiated with his help, of course. So his services to STPI, and the fact that today STPI is the oldest non-profit independent think tank in the country. So I think Dr. Tariq Banori, our founder, is also here. But we owe a lot to Dr. Pervez Tahir's services over here, including my own deputation from the service to STPI, in which before making the transition, I had gone to two people, one, of course, being Dr. Nadeemul Haq, and the other, my former boss, Dr. Pervez Tahir. So for that, of course, I remain indebted to him. And once again, my deepest condolences to all his family members and his friends. Thanks.
There you see, anybody who's worked with PT, we've got two of us people who were trained by him. One, Oshiki, I think if he comes back, he can complete his thought, but Waqar Ahmed is well known to all of us. So PT was, one of those guys who gave his time and his effort to try and help young people grow. This is the most important thing, because very few people in Pakistan lets their people in the fold grow. And PT was one of those. As I said, he even taught me how to go into or pushed me into go to newspaper writing, and which I really learned from him. So I owe him that. And as Waqar said, he also helped STPI grow. So yeah, he was as somebody else put it, he was a humble man, but thoughtful man. And as I keep insisting, with a very dry sense of humor, but a very effective sense of humor, and very effective means of communication. which he did very well. He also ran the Pakistan Council for Social Science for a while. He did a great job there, established the famous lecture that people are giving. So he had a lot of strengths to him. Inshallah, we will all remember him, and we will try and keep his spirit alive. And hopefully we will also, as Tariq said, organize. We are trying at PIDE to organize economists. Can we organize economists? I'm not sure. We are trying, and let's hope we can organize economists into something like the American Economic Association and something like the Royal Economic Society, which we desperately need in this country, because economists themselves are very in a disorganized sector. And I think PT and I shared this thought. We talked about it often. Yes, of course, we should try and organize the economics profession. That will be very important. So with that, if there's nobody else who wants to speak, I'll go to the family. There is one more hand, I think. Oh yeah, now we go to the family. Nadia, please, go ahead. Nadia Tahir, PT's wife. Go ahead.
Nadeem, thank you very much. PIDE, your team, giving this tribute to my dear husband, a great economist, a great human being. Wasti Saab ne bilkul theek yaad dilaya. He was about to cut his cake. Wasti Saab ki call aayi and he was saying, hum dekhna chahte hain PT ko finance minister for this country and he can change. And PT was saying, kyun mujhe aakhri umar mein ख्वार karoge? वास्ती साहब ने एक और बहुत बड़ा काम मेरे जिम्मे लगाया टू कंपाइल पीटीज वर्क ताकि उसको हम यंगस्टर्स तक पहुंचा सकें और मेरा ख्याल है आई नीड पाइड्स हेल्प SDPI help and Tariq and all of you, all his friends to help me in compiling his work, organizing his work. एक और बात जो मैं यहाँ पर ज़रूर आप सबके सामने रखना चाहूँगी, आज हम सब इम्पैक्ट की बात करते हैं, ऑर्गेनाइज होने की बात करते हैं, तो पीटी ने बहुत जल्दी ये शायद समझ लिया था कि इकोनॉमिस्ट, इकोनॉमिक काम मासेस तक पहुँचाना बहुत ज़रूरी है. And maybe I was not been able to understand this, लेकिन पीटी ने हमेशा ये कोशिश की कि अपनी ख्यालात, अपनी सोच प्रैग्मेटिक हों और फिर वो प्रैक्टिकल हों और फिर वो लोगों तक पहुँचे. And he picked up to write in dailies and talking to the labor leaders, labor unions, laborers, everybody for economic discourse. क्योंकि उनका ख्याल था कि ये बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है. 28 जुलाई को 24 को पीटी को पता चला कि उनको ट्रिपल वेसल डिजीज है और हिज हार्ट इज टू वीक फॉर द सर्जरी. और मुझे उन्होंने एक मैसेज लिखा. उस वक्त शायद मैं उनको किसी और तरह से रिस्पॉन्ड किया था, लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि आज आप सबका शुक्रिया अदा करते हुए आई मस्ट रीड that message which he sent me on 28th of the July. हमें खुदा ने बुलाया था, कहा कहो कैसी गुजर रही है. हमने अपने होंठ, जुबानें और दिमाग उसके हुजूर रख दिए. अर्ज किया मुल्क में हमारे अब ये किसी काम के नहीं रहे. उनके इस्तेमाल पर पाबंदी है. ये नेमत तुझे हम वापस लौटाते हैं. बस 2 आंखें एक दिल साथ लिए जाते हैं. दिल ही दिल में अलाव जलाते रहेंगे. आंसू अलाव पर छिड़कते रहेंगे. और ये बात उन्होंने सलमान राजा को लिखी कि लेफ्टिस्ट होने का मतलब और साइलेंट होने का वक्त नहीं. मैं नूरुल हुदा शाह की पोइट्री पढ़ रहा हूँ और जिसका मतलब है कि अमल का वक्त है. तारिक ने बिल्कुल ठीक कहा कि ऑर्गेनाइज, दिस इज द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग. इकोनॉमिक डिस्कोर्स, इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसीज हैज टू बी corrected and it has to taken into the right direction. और वकार के लिए आखिरी सेमिनार हमने जब अटेंड किया अप्रैल में, तो मैंने कभी इतना इम्पेशेंट पीटी को नहीं देखा था कभी भी कि वो अपनी बात करते वक्त इम्पेशेंट हों। लेकिन उस मीटिंग में वकार को याद होगा, उन्होंने कहा वकार मेरा वकार है। सो आप सबसे शुक्रिया करते हुए दरख्वास्त करूंगी कि हम सबको पीटी के ख्यालात, पीटी की बातें और पीटी के काम को आगे लेके जाना, दिस इज मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग। एंड आई थिंक we all are here gathered to appreciate his achievements, his effective understanding, and obviously as a family and the friends, it is something we owe towards PT. Thank you very much.
Very kind, Nadia. I also must mention your article that you wrote just after PT's death, PT My Love. It is a very, very poignant, very wonderful article. Obviously heartfelt, obviously from a wife, but it was also very interesting in the way you covered his work. So really, in all senses, you are true partners, and your loss is understandable, and we share it. We all feel very strongly for it. Any other family member would like to say anything? Vinesh is your brother here. Anybody else, if you want to say anything, please, before we close.
No, I think Nadia has summed it up quite well from the family. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Travelak, you want to say something? Or Uzema? Okay, fair enough, folks. I think...
Can you hear me?
Ji, boliye.
Oh, because the host was not allowing to unmute. Anyway. Yeah. हो गया. सबसे पहले मेरी और इकराम की तरफ से नादिया के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा कंडोलेंसेस, द होल फैमिली ऑफ कोर्स। एंड ओके, पीटी के साथ हमारी एसोसिएशन कोई पिछले में खाली 8-10 साल से थी, और he was one of the most humanistic persons that I've ever known in my life. And जितना भी थोड़ा बहुत उनके साथ था उठना बैठना, उससे एक चीज़ का एहसास हुआ है कि even civil servants can be quite human, within themselves. तो बड़े दिल के आदमी थे, बहुत बड़े दिल के आदमी थे, और उनकी लॉस जो है वो हमेशा हमारे लिए रहेगी ऑब्वियसली। जब भी मिलना उन्होंने बड़े प्यार से मिलना, और आपके साथ तो हम कितनी गैदरिंग्स में भी हम हिस्सा लेते रहे, ह्यूमन राइट्स कमीशन के अंदर उनके साथ, और नादिया के साथ, नादिया भी की प्रेजेंटेशंस देखते रहे हैं। बहरहाल उनका काम तो हमेशा ताज़िंदगी हयात, मतलब जब तक ये दुनिया है रहेगी और काम भी रहेगा, और इसी तरह हयात जावेदा सबको उन लोगों को हासिल होती है जो इस तरह की इंसानियत के लिए कुछ कर जाती है। थैंक यू।
बहुत शुक्रिया ज़मीन, बहुत शुक्रिया। Folks, let's all remember PT. Let's all remember, Tariq said, organize. Let's all remember what is needed in this country is a discourse that PT worked towards, that we are all working towards, and let's all remember that we have not created that discourse yet. We have stray writings. We need to create polemics and discourse. That's what makes a subject live. And with that, let me say, we'll all remember PT, and we'll inshallah try and continue the mission of creating an economic discourse in this country. Thank you very much, folks. It's always important to remember good ideas. PIDE tries to remember all the good people it can. We remembered Arif Nizami when he died. We remembered Ramansa when he died. So we will continue. Hopefully, we don't have to do many of these. But yes, at the same time, all of us have to go. So let's continue the tradition of remembering people and remembering their contribution. After all, that's what human beings are. We are idea carriers, and we carry each other's ideas. Our burden is the ideas of the previous generation. Let's keep that burden alive, because that's what makes us rich. That's what makes us humans. Thank you very much, folks. All the best. Remember PT. Khuda Hafiz.